Bihar Chief Minister expanding his cabinet. It's over to Vasu for all the latest.
Thanks very much indeed, Gargi. That's right. So we already saw Nitish Kumar and Tejashwi Yadav. They swore in. It was a two-man cabinet as this big transition of power took place in Patna. And now they're finally going to expand their cabinet and have a full government, not just the big two. And let's go live across straight to Raj Bhavan in Bihar. I believe actually the national anthem is playing at the moment as the governor gets ready to swear in the new team. And the big question, of course, is going to be as to who's going to get what. How much will the RJD get? How much will the JDU get? Chief Minister Nitish Kumar, what portfolios is he going to keep? This is all going to be important in seeing the power shift in Bihar, power sharing in Bihar. And that's crucial to understand, is it going to work or not? My colleague Alok Pandey also joins me to weigh in on this. So Alok, thanks for being on. Now, the sense that we're getting so far, Alok, is that because of the fact that the RJD in a sense is the bada bhaiya, the big brother in this in this partnership. I mean, in terms of numbers of MLAs, Chief Minister may be Nitish Kumar, seniority and so on, but the RJD has the sizable number of MLAs and almost close to double of what Nitish has, and so that's why RJD is going to get more portfolios than JDU.
You're absolutely right, Vasu. That is the sense that we've got from Patna also. In fact, Manish Kumar, our colleague, has also reported that the RJD is going to keep the maximum portfolios, followed by the JDU. And then, of course, you have the other parties like the Congress, the Hindustani Awam Morcha of Jitan Ram Manjhi. Also, an independent is also being sworn in. So I think a total of 33 people will be part of this ministry after today's swearing in. Nitish and Tejashwi, of course, already sworn in as Bihar's Deputy Chief Minister and Deputy Chief Minister. 31 more people being sworn in today. Very important, like you said, to also reflect on who gets what. Now, in the past, Nitish Kumar has mostly kept the home portfolio, meaning that the police are directly answerable to him as the Bihar Chief Minister. It's unlikely to change this time around, more so because there have been these host of allegations about Jungle Raj or the fear of Jungle Raj, quote unquote, returning, etc. from the BJP. And I have to say also from some parts of the public who have openly said that, look, we are a little apprehensive of this government because we, going by the RJD's past track record, the RJD of course has said that, look, this is all in the past and that we are fully committed to delivering a government that will ensure law and order. So the home portfolio may be kept by Nitish Kumar, which then brings us to the question of other portfolios. So last time around, I remember that there was one more thing that is very striking, which is that Tej Pratap Yadav, Lalu Yadav's elder son and Tejashwi's elder brother, is also going to be a cabinet minister. That's the information that we have. So he'll also be sworn in. Now, the last time around, I remember that when the first coalition Mahagathbandhan 1.0 took shape, I believe, if I remember correctly, he started with the health portfolio and also handled environment at some point of time. So both portfolios very sensitive, particularly health. However, there were many allegations about the way he functioned, about how he actually administered his departments. So this time around also expect no different. BJP likely to make those allegations of nepotism against the Yadav family, saying that, look, Tejashwi is already the deputy CM, but his elder brother also getting a berth in the Bihar cabinet. So that's one thing. Some of the portfolios, the plum positions, so to say, if I can use that expression, are likely to go to the RJD also. For instance, PWD, that plays a major role in constructing roads or institutional infrastructure, is likely to go to the RJD, is what we have heard, but it remains to be seen whether that will happen or not. So the power balance between the RJD and the JDU will be very interesting to see. Like you said, the RJD almost has double the numbers, or very, very close to double the numbers of what the JDU has in terms of MLAs. Also, the caste composition, Vasu, if you allow me 20 more seconds, the caste composition of the cabinet also very important in a state where politics is so dependent on caste like Bihar. So OBCs and extremely backward classes will have 17 ministers. Upper castes will have 6. Scheduled castes 5 and Muslim 5. This is the information sent in by Manish Kumar, our Patna colleague. So again, adequate representation being given to OBCs and EBCs and then so on and so forth. So something again very important for this Mahagathbandhan to keep their caste equations, their caste balances in shape. as they head into the actual question of governance, which I think should be the most important point for all of us. How is this administration
Right,
going
Alok,
to govern
just
in
to
the
quickly
next
get in
6
there.
years? And that perhaps
Alok,
is their political future.
Just to quickly get in there, what we're seeing now on stage at Raj Bhavan appears to be a kind of what can be called a sort of mass swearing in. Ministers going to be sworn in batches. So, in fact, we can see Tej Pratap Yadav there, son of Lalu Prasad Yadav, front and center, taking oath as a minister. And they are going to be sworn in, it seems, in batches of 5 or 6. Let's just listen in a little bit to the feed coming in live from Raj Bhavan. So those you can see are live pictures coming in from Raj Bhavan in Patna, where ministers of the new RJD JDU Gathbandhan are taking oath in batches, a total of 30 plus, expected 31 ministers, 30 to 31 ministers to take oath today, as our correspondent Alok Pandey, Manish Kumar reporting, which a lion's share is going to be the RJD as the big brother of this alliance, with approximately 16 ministers in the JDU, with 11 ministers, the Congress also getting a couple of ministers, 2 ministers, the Hindustan Awam Morcha, HAM, Jitin Ram Manjhi, 1 minister, and independent is also going to be sworn in. So those are the pictures coming in from there. Let's also just go across to panel now and start getting comments. Mayank Sinha of the JDU is with us. Joining us, Alok Vats of the BJP is with us, Sanjay Jha, political analyst with us, Javed Ansari, senior journalist with us. So Mayank Sinha, नमस्कार. आपसे सबसे पहले सवाल है कि ये जो हम देख रहे हैं कि आप दोबारा ये जो आपकी एक्सपेरिमेंट महागठबंधन की सरकार जो बन रही है, कुछ 30 मिनिस्टर्स स्वेयर इन हो रहे हैं, आरजेडी को ज़्यादा सीटें गई हैं, ज़्यादा मिनिस्ट्रीज गई हैं, ये हमको खबर मिल रही है. तो क्या गारंटी है कि इस बार आपकी सरकार चलेगी? लास्ट टाइम तो 2 साल में आपकी सरकार लुढ़क गई.
ये सरकार पूरा अपना टर्म पूरा करेगी, और ये सरकार जो है आपको सामाजिक न्याय के ऊपर बनी हुई सरकार है, और हम लोग कानून का राज एस्टैब्लिश करके जो हमने कमिटमेंट किया है उसको डिलीवर करने का काम हम करें.
नहीं, किस गारंटी से आप कह रहे हैं कि इस बार चलेगी? बिकॉज लास्ट टाइम तो नीतीश जी को करप्शन को लेके परेशानी हो गई थी, जब छापे पड़ रहे थे आरजेडी पे, उन्होंने कहा करप्शन है और वो निकल गए.
तो लास्ट टाइम किसने वो आईटी सीबीआई और आईटी का इस्तेमाल करवाया था, और कहाँ रहे 5 साल? 5 साल तो सोते रहे. उसमें अगर तेजस्वी जी को फिर से मैंडेट मिला अच्छा खासा, तो वो चुन के आए. करप्शन तो जनता तय करती है ना, बीजेपी के आईटी सीबीआई और ईडी की टीम तो तय नहीं करेगी जो उनका.
तो इस बार आप कह रहे हैं, इसका मतलब अगर इस बार रेड्स होते हैं तो आप उससे रिएक्ट नहीं करेंगे, आप इस बार विड्रॉ नहीं करेंगे?
नहीं, किस बात का? वो तो सीबीआई आईटी और ईडी का इस्तेमाल तो पूरा देश देख चुका है कि किस लिए ये लोग करते हैं. सरकार गिराने के लिए, सरकार को अपने पाले में बदलने के लिए, तो सब कुछ देश देख चुका है ये इनका एक्सपेरिमेंट.
अच्छा, तो as we can see on the screen, we are seeing the ministers there taking oath, then they're coming up and greeting the governor, and as it seems, as I said, to be a swearing in being done in batches, perhaps to speed things up. Alok Vats, how do you respond to that? That earlier the corruption allegations, it seems, the suggestion seems to be from the JDU were had a ring of perhaps authenticity to it. Now he's saying these raids are all politically motivated. So there's no threat to this government taking shape in Patna.
Let me tell you one thing, Srinivas, that the person at the helm of affair, he is already on bail. Tejashwi Yadav is in bail in IT CRCT case. So the law will take its own course, and in due course, he will be investigated again. And if he is proved to be guilty, he is bound to go behind bars. Rest, Chapter 2, Jungle Raj has already started. There has been a rape and murder in Betia a few days ago. There was a murder in Nevada, and there was a murder in Patna. All this happening within last 2-3 days. So
no, are you saying there were no rapes and murders? There were no rapes and murders under the BJP JDU government. I mean, surely that cannot be the argument. Rape. Sadly, the reality of this country is rapes and murders are a daily occurrence.
But the spate of crime has suddenly escalated. You see, the people who are involved in such nefarious activities have once again become active. They are fearless now. And the Janta of the Bihar, they are into fear. The Jungle Raj has come back. How are we going to be safely?
Okay, before I move on to the rest, let's get a quick comment from Mayank Sinha. He wants to rebut. Yes, Mayank Sinha. ये कह रहे हैं कि जंगल राज स्टार्ट हो गया है, रेप मर्डर स्टार्ट हो गया है.
अभी उत्तर प्रदेश का कुछ दिन पहले का देख लीजिए. अभी परसों ही एक लड़की के साथ 17 साल की लड़की के साथ दुष्कर्म हुआ है. तो वो नहीं कोर्ट करते हैं. ये अपने स्टेट को कोर्ट नहीं करते हैं. अभी आप कर्नाटका में देखिए कितना बड़ा स्कैम चल रहा है, वो कोर्ट नहीं करेंगे.
अच्छा, नहीं उस पे आते हैं, वॉट अबाउटरी में नहीं आते हैं. अभी आप बिहार का बताएं कि क्या ऐसा ये आरोप लगाया जा रहा है कि सरकार बनने से पहले ही इस किस्म के रेप और मर्डर और बाकी अत्याचारों का जो एक तरह से सिलसिला है वो बढ़ गया है, ऐसा है कुछ?
नो, देयर इज नो जंगल राज, देयर इज कानून का राज. ओके, देयर इज रूल ऑफ लॉ एंड इट इज प्रिवेल इन द कमिंग फ्यूचर ऑल्सो. जंगल राज तो केंद्र में है, इनके मंत्री एक बोल नहीं सकते हैं. महंगाई इतनी चरम सीमा पर है, बेरोजगारी है. आवर चीफ मिनिस्टर एड्रेस्ड यस्टरडे 14 lakhs jobs in the government sector.
Right. Okay. Let's
announces.
All right. Okay. Let me go to wider panel. Javed Ansari, weigh in a little bit on how you think it's going to play out this time. When you look at this current composition, 16 of RJD, 11 of JDU, it appears that Nitish Kumar is going to hold on to the home portfolio. What's the flavor and character of this government? Does it suggest to you that there is likely to be a greater stability this time around? Or could we see friction surface once again?
Look, everything will hinge on how the RJD conducts itself. Look, especially Tej Pratap Yadav, he's known to be slightly mercurial and temperamental. He flies off the handle. So he needs to understand and function within the discipline. He needs to understand that he is a part of a cabinet and there's collective responsibility, and there cannot be multiple power centers. This is a very audacious gamble which both the Nitish Kumar and the RJD have taken. And if it blows up in the face, everybody will be hurt. There won't be a third innings for sure. So it's in everybody's interest, especially the RJD and JDU, to make this work. Nitish, it comes as no surprise to me that RJD has taken the lion's share of the cabinet. They are by far the largest party, and therefore logically it should go to him. But the home ministry, as you say, is with Nitish Kumar. Now that is critical, because in the days ahead, I foresee trouble. As it is, the BJP spokesman has been hinting कि law and order खराब है, वहाँ rape हो रहा है. The other day, a BJP Rajya Sabha MP was on your program, and he was saying that it's become Bihar is turning the Islamic way because Friday has been declared as a holiday. So these kind of issues will start coming to the fore. There'll be an attempt to ferment social tension, and how Nitish Kumar and Tejashwi deal with this will also depend. You need to ensure that there's stability, and they need to deliver on some of the promises that they've made.
Sanjay Jha, again, just looking at the signals from this that go beyond Bihar, and we spoke about this quite a lot at the time when this entire shake-up was going on. And of course, there's been a lot of commentary on whether this marks some kind of shift in national politics and so on and so forth. But, again, because it's easy to do the kind of hot take punditry on the moment, but stepping back, many people have really questioned whether this is going to signal any major shift. Just coincidentally or not, just around the time this was going on, Sanjay, you would have seen there were a couple of these mood of the nation polls. And again, this is not, to suggest that polls are necessarily authentic. All the safety, hazards and health warnings about polls. But broadly, the trend seemed to suggest that there was no great dent in the BJP's national level popularity. Maybe this dents them somewhat in Bihar. We'll have to wait and see. Overall, it's still, Narendra Modi miles ahead of everybody else, the BJP NDA 300 plus. So, is Bihar just a blip?
Vasu, I do believe that Bihar is a big tailwind for the opposition. As you rightly said, one of the biggest disappointments that I think the opposition should experience at the moment is that despite a very underwhelming performance by Mr. Modi's government, both in 2014 and 19, there are serious issues in our country. And it's not just jobs and inflation. It's about the death of democracy, the emasculation of the institutions, the blatant communal polarization being done by Mr. Modi's government. It's very clear what their agenda is. And if the opposition cannot mount a campaign now, when will they do it? And therefore, I believe that there is a lot of merit in the argument that Nitish Kumar could be a potential consensus candidate. A very significant Hindi-speaking state has now moved away from the BJP. And if you include Jharkhand, the erstwhile Bihar is no longer with the BJP. Again, there is no Shiv Sena with the BJP, and we'll see, which part of Shiv Sena remains with them in Maharashtra. There is going to be, Vasu, a significant ramification of this at the national level. However, there is one point that I do wish to make on your show, that what the BJP under Mr. Modi has done, and I think Narendra Modi has done it brilliantly, is the nationalization of politics in India, where state elections are also no longer just on bread and butter issues or local law and order issues, but everything is now being linked to hyper nationalism, to, are you patriotic, the communal kind of, confederations that are created. There's a nationalization of politics in India.
That apart though. Sanjay, that apart. The question really, my simple question was, is Bihar going to move the national needle when it comes to politics? As I said, the evidence...
I think so.
You think it will?
I think so. I'm very clear that this is going to send a signal to everybody in the opposition that here you're finding JDU, RJD, Congress, and there are other parties along with that.
Okay.
So if the opposition gets together, today look at the BJP in Bihar. They are the only opposition party with 70 odd seats. And this has happened overnight. So you got to play the BJP's game either at their own, beat them at their own game, or you change the rules altogether.
Okay. Alok Vats, respond to that this could signal to the BJP a shift. Is the BJP nervous? Should they be nervous?
We are not nervous at all, Vasu. We have had enough pillion right to power. Now we are going to make a comeback on our own. And even the Janta of Bihar is wanting us to stand alone now and make it on our own. Because enough of, pillion right we have had. And people also don't want to see us in that frame anymore. And let me tell you one thing, as Mr. Jha was suggesting...
No, but Alok, you won't say this is a big jhatka for you. Losing a big state like Bihar, losing power there...
But we are very confident about our cadre, about our worker, about our policies, about our framework of governing. So we are very sure about these things. We have already started our campaign to go to the people and try to win their heart.
Okay.
And as Mr. Sanjay Jha was suggesting that Mr. Nitish Kumar could be a figure behind which the people will rally around. I doubt this because there are many contenders in the opposition for the PM's post. Whether it will be Rahul Gandhi, whether it will be Mamata Banerjee, whether it will be Mr. Rao or anybody else. So they should settle among themselves to lead them.
Okay, Javed Ansari quickly wants to come in and then I want to go to my colleague Alok who's on the ground. Yes, Javed.
Amazing things happening, Vasu. Here there's a BJP member seeing great virtue in Rahul Gandhi's leadership qualities. Till now they were running him down. Now he sees him as a potential Prime Minister candidate. See
I
the
don't foresee
winds of change are already
the
sweeping
Congress
across the
party
land.
will want him to be the PM candidate.
No, I think he's
don't
trying to
foresee him as the
pit.
PM material
He's
at
trying to
all.
pit all these people against each other. I don't know. But anyway, Alok Pandey, if you're still with us, Alok. So basically, it seems interesting the format. We've seen this, by the way, in several states to do the ministers in batches, 4 or 5 ministers each. Also, Alok, looking at the feed from there, one isn't able to spot the Chief Minister, Deputy Chief Minister. Perhaps they're in the audience and we're not getting the audience reaction shot. But that's the state of affairs right now at the swearing in, Alok.
Well, you're right. I think I did see initially the Chief Minister and the Deputy Chief Minister arrive, so they must be in the audience,
In the
and that's why we
audience,
don't
yes.
have a reaction or a feed on them right now.
Yeah.
But I'm sure in the later stages we'll get to hear from them also. I just want to add one thing to all the discussion, which anyway has been very apt for the swearing in. But just one more point that I wanted to act is that this entire fear of law and order degrading, etc., is a very real fear. I know that the RJD says that these are stories from the past and they should not be raked up, etc. And I agree to an extent that a social context from say 30 years ago cannot be brought, and a hype around it should not be created right now. But I tell you that this entire issue of law and order and fear from residents, especially in the urban centers like say Patna, is something that is very, very real, and something that I found when I went around speaking to people of all classes in that sense, and everyone said that, look, yes, there is an apprehension, though everyone also said that they have a lot of confidence in Tejashwi Yadav and his leadership, especially because he's a younger person, so to say. Like, for instance, yesterday, Giriraj Singh, the BJP MP and Union Minister, the BJP MP from Bihar, he tweeted a picture of a convict, a former MP who is now a murder convict, Anand Mohan, who was brought to Patna for some court-related matter, and then he allegedly went home. And he was there, and his photos and videos are there, and now apparently some policeman has been suspended, etc. So the BJP will use every such incident to try and run down this coalition, the Nitish Tejashwi coalition or the JDU-RJD coalition, and I guess it's up to the government or these leaders to move ahead and try and ensure that allegations like these don't come up in the first place.
Right. So what you're seeing on screen, just to recap for our viewers, is this swearing in going on of the Mahagathbandhan 2.0. The team Nitish Tejashwi is taking oath in Patna, batches of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can see them being sworn in batches of 5. From the Janata Dal United, you have about 11 MLAs. Most of these are supposed to be people who've already been part of the earlier government, ministers like Vijay Kumar Chaudhary, Ashok Chaudhary, Sanjay Jha, Sheila Mandal, Jayant Raj, Shravan Kumar, Madan Sahani, Sunil Kumar, Jama Khan. From the RJD 16, that includes, of course, Tej Pratap Yadav, who we saw there earlier, son of Lalu Pratap Yadav, Surendra Yadav, Lalit Yadav, Virendra, Ramanand Yadav. So a significant representation of Yadavs as expected with the RJD. Kumar Sarvjit, Surendra Ram, Shehnawaz Alam is there, Akhtar Islam Shaheen, Samir Mahaset, Bharat Mandal, etc., etc. These are the MLAs from the RJD. From the Congress, you have 2, Murari Lal Gautam and Afaq Alam, and of course one from HAM and an independent. And this is going to be now the government that will run Bihar, and that's what everyone's eyes are on. Will they be able to hold the fort or not? Let's go back once again to panel, and just coming back to you, Mayank Sinha, Mayank Sinha, I mean, isn't there going to be now this concern? Okay, Mayank Sinha will just, yeah, we go to Mayank Sinha. Mayank Sinha,
I stay with you.
Isn't there going to be a concern about how will the power sharing work between Nitish Kumar and Tejashwi? How will that work?
No, I already said to you that this government formed for the social and economical development of the state of Bihar, and with total peace and security.
That is the wider point. I am asking you on specific terms. Because after all, who is the bada bhai? Nitish ji may be more senior, but RJD has more MLAs.
No, there is no chota bhai and bada bhai. There is a secular government and we are focused for the development, and we are trying to give the opportunities for the jobs, and we are trying to give the better law and order in the state of Bihar. There is no chota bhai and bada bhai. There is a samajik nyay ka sarkar.
But when you say you will be giving jobs and all that, I mean, hasn't the track record on that so far not been great?
And why you are discussing about the past? Why you are not talking about the present? We are talking about the present with new ideas, with new.
Because Mayank Sinha, as you know, that as a journalist, one always has to go by the record. You have to look at the record, right?
आप देखो 2 साल हम सरकार जब चलाए थे
जी.
तो you see the NCRB डाटा, कोई क्राइम बढ़ा था क्या? बीजेपी क्रिएट ए फियर, बीजेपी ट्राइंग टू क्रिएट ए फियर, बिकॉज वो नहीं चाहते हैं कि बिहार में इन्वेस्टमेंट आए, बिहार में लोगों को रोजगार मिले, तो इस तरह का वो प्रोपोगंडा चला के बिहार को बदनाम करने की चाहते हैं।
2 साल में आपने कितनी जॉब्स दिए?
नहीं, मैं आपको बता रहा हूँ।
नहीं, मैं आपसे पूछ रहा हूँ।
मैं बता रहा हूँ
2 साल में अभी तक कितने जॉब्स क्रिएट हुए?
बता रहा हूँ, आई एम कमिंग ऑन दिस पॉइंट। हमने शिक्षकों की बहाली की, जो शिक्षक थे पद पे नहीं थे, उनको हमने बहाल करने का काम किया। बीपीएससी की जो परीक्षा है रेगुलर कंडक्ट होते आती है हर प्रति वर्ष। एक ऐसा स्टेट है बिहार जहां बीपीएससी हमेशा कंडक्ट करते रहता है, और जितनी वैकेंसी आती है उसको हम लोग देखते हैं।
मुझे आगे बढ़ना है, मैं अभी आपसे बस इतना पूछ रहा हूं कि पिछले 2 साल में कितने जॉब्स क्रिएट हुए?
अभी इसके आंकड़े जो हैं मैं आपको दे दूंगा। अभी मैं आंकड़े लेके नहीं बैठा हूं, लेकिन मैं आपको भरोसा दिलाता हूं कि मैं आपको आंकड़े दे दूंगा।
अभी तो आप कह रहे हैं कि आप कह रहे हैं कि व्हाई डू आई डाउट, तो इसलिए तो मैं पूछ रहा हूं, वी नीड द रिकॉर्ड। बट एनीवे, आलोक वाज, द फैक्ट इज दैट इज द बीजेपी sour grapes. You know, today you're saying that Nitish is unreliable, Jungle Raj, etc., etc. The fact is, Alok Vats, you're the ones who've partnered with Nitish. The BJP and Nitish Kumar earlier as Samta Party and now as JDU, you all have been partners since the mid-90s.
Yes, almost 17 years
Yes.
we were partners. But let me tell you one thing. In Bihar, it was a political compulsion to ally with him. But then he was known as a Sushashan Babu, a man with honest, clean and honest record, and with a governance for the upliftment of the poor. But time and again, as he is called Paltu Ram by Lalu Yadav, he has gone back on his stand.
But
And
Alok
now-
Vats, that's the point which no one is able to understand, that when Nitish is with you, he is Sushasan Babu. When he is with the RJD, he is Jungle Raj Babu, or he is some other Babu. I mean, how does that work?
Obviously, as you have categorically time and again repeated that RJD is holding the lion's share. Who are these people? Who coined the word Jungle Raj? It was Nitish Kumar who coined the word Jungle Raj. And when he was in there with them in alliance,
Okay.
he quit from there saying that I didn't know what was happening in my cabinet. There was a lot of loot taking place and I had no control over it. So he came back to us.
Okay.
Who said all these things? We didn't call it a Jungle Raj. It was Nitish Kumar who fought on this plank of Jungle Raj
Right.
and then came into power.
But the fact is, Sanjay Jha, that, you know, as we see this government take shape, that the idea that it will have reverberations beyond Bihar, the fact is that, as many have pointed out even earlier in our analysis, that this is not the same Nitish, this is a diminished Nitish. His seat share has steadily fallen. He's the number 3 party in Bihar. He's seen as unreliable, switching sides, opportunistic. Is he really someone who can emerge as a national figurehead?
See, Vasu, I think, there can be the criticism of, Nitish actually joining the BJP in 2017. In my personal opinion, that was one of his political blunders. Having said that, there is no denying that his credentials on secularism are impeccable. Also, I think on governance, particularly where women are concerned, he's been seen as a champion there. Besides, of course, he always has stood for the issues of the backward classes, and his track record in governance will definitely be much better than many of the chief ministers. I'll give you one example here. I mean, look at Maharashtra. where they have taken over a month to form a government. They haven't had a government. They have two people running a state like Maharashtra. And I'm so glad that the current Mahagathbandhan has got into action immediately. So I think somewhere down the line, Nitish has, I think, an administrative track record. And he is also somebody who definitely is, despite all the criticism against him, seen as someone who can possibly carry conflicting parties along. Not just because of his age, but also his experience of having seen a lot of politics during his career. So I do believe there's a huge positive for the opposition. And Nitish does have a chance to come back into the national game.
Javed, you know, apart from the unreliability factor of Nitish, the fact is that in 2010, even 2015, when people were talking about him playing a national role, the JDU was doing extremely well. Today, the JDU is barely down to 40 MLAs. Doesn't that itself become a negative on him for being seen as some kind of wider national figure?
Vasu, why do you forget the days when you and I were reporting from outside Andhra Bhavan? Two gentlemen became prime ministers who barely had support of MPs who go into double figures, Mr. Deve Gowda and Mr. Gujral. So stranger things have happened in politics. Yes, he could have done with a larger body of support. He could do with a larger body of support. But who knows, come 2024, what will happen? For now, yes, and the opposition isn't exactly spoiled for choices, is it? I mean, there may be a lot of pretenders to the throne, but if you go candidate-wise, you'll soon realize that they're not standing on very firm ground. So Mr. Nitish Kumar has as good a chance as any. Much will depend on how this coalition government, Mahagathbandhan government functions for the next 2 years. And the RJD has to realize it's a fact that the RJD is the single largest party, but it's also a fact that Mr. Nitish Kumar is the chief minister, and there cannot be more than one chief minister at any given time. So they must allow him to govern, allow him to lead the team. He's the captain of the team, allow him.
Allow the captain. But एक जो point है Mayank Sinha, one thing which is being said is that this is being done as a precursor to 2024. In 2024, Nitish Kumar will now try to make a shift to Delhi. He is going for the PM's gaddi and Tejashwi will become CM.
This is the hypothetical question, and we are discussing about the today. Our government trying to give a good effort with unity of secular and democratic government in the state of Bihar.
No, is Nitish Kumar looking to become PM?
ना PM बनने की उनमें पूरी योग्यता है, जो योग्यता होनी चाहिए पूरी योग्यता है. और मैं आपको एक बात बता देता हूँ, हमारे बड़े भाई आलोक जी बोल रहे थे बीजेपी की तरफ से कि देयर इज जंगल राज इन द स्टेट ऑफ बिहार. तो मैं आपको एक बता देता हूँ कि आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी आकर और गृह मंत्री जी आकर नीतीश जी का पीठ थपथपाए थे और बोले थे कि देयर इज ए कानून का राज इन द स्टेट ऑफ बिहार. ऐसा 2 दिन में क्या हो गया कि इनका वर्जन चेंज हो गया. देयर इज ए टोटल फ्रस्ट्रेशन कम्स आउट इन द बीजेपी. ओके,
उसका भी जवाब आलोक जी उसका जवाब भी आलोक जी देंगे. लेकिन पहले मुझे बताइए, आप कह रहे हैं नीतीश कुमार में क्षमता है पीएम बनने के लिए, लेकिन यहाँ तो अब आप जेडीयू नंबर 3 पार्टी बन गई है बिहार में. हर चुनाव में उसके सीट्स गिर रहे हैं अंडर नीतीश कुमार लीडरशिप.
देयर इज ए बिग कॉन्स्पिरेसी done in the last 2020 election,
right?
और उसका मास्टरमाइंड थे बीजेपी के लोग.
Okay.
बीजेपी ने लोजपा से अपने कैंडिडेट को खड़ा करके नीतीश कुमार को डैमेज करने का काम किया.
Right.
तो
okay. This is the Chirag Paswan conspiracy.
Chirag factor.
Okay. All right. Let's as we are seeing the swearing in, let's go back to the swearing in. We are getting more details of the composition of the ministers taking oath. My colleague Alok Pandey is here with me, and Alok, I think we've got some details from our colleague Manish Kumar. Give us a sense of the sort of social breakup of the cabinet, because you know this is also about political symbolism.
You're absolutely right. So I think looking at the caste breakup, we've discussed the overall caste breakup, but now Manish ji, our colleague in Patna, has sent us the detailed breakup also. So again, it does seem that OBCs or other backward classes, or a part of them are called EBCs in Bihar, which are extremely backward classes, so or castes. So they form the majority in this government. So, for instance, in the Rashtriya Janata Dal, you have 7 Yadavs. So, again, it's not unexpected. So, the fact that, the Rashtriya Janata Dal's major support base has been the Muslim Yadav combination. So, they have given 7 births to Yadavs and 3 to Muslims. And those are number 1 and number 2, so to say. And then, of course, you have EBCs, Ati Pichhadas at 2. Then you have other combinations coming in. For the Congress, you have one from one Muslim and one SC minister. And from the JDU, again, Kurmis are one of the major support bases of the JDU. So they have 2 Kurmis, 1 Yadav, 1 Muslim, 2 extremely backward classes. Again, something that Nitish Kumar created out of the OBC groupings in Bihar. And then SPs, 2 Kushwahas, Bhumihars, Brahmins. Bhumihar, Brahman, Rajput, the upper classes, they get 3 births. And the Hindustani Awam Morcha of Jitan Ram Manji, again, 1 SC minister. And the independent candidate is a Rajput. So I think they've tried to balance the caste equations and tried to, also, so to say, pander to their own support bases. And that's why they've come up with these combinations. What remains to be seen is how effective these ministers are when it comes to governance.
All right, Alok, thanks very much for that. So as we see those ministers now, the latest batch of ministers being sworn in, as we said, they're being sworn in batches of 5 each, that we are also getting a breakup of the social composition. And as Alok mentioned, there's a strong, obvious representation of those from the lower caste, the backward caste, OBCs, with a large number of Yadavs. Arguably at the moment, if you look at the breakup from the RJD, the single largest block of ministers are from the Yadav community. And then, of course, as you mentioned, you have ministers from Muslim community as well as from the EBC or the MBC, the most or extreme backward community, as well as SC ministers and so on and so forth. And there's just 1 or 2 ministers from the upper caste, Bhumihar, Rajputs, and so on. So that's something actually just to ask you, Mayank Sinha, that when you look at the social composition and you see this breakup, you see a large number of Yadavs from the RJD ranks. These are again concerns that surfaced even earlier, that क्या एक side का ज़्यादा दबाव हो जाता है, one side becomes more dabang and then the other communities feel anxious?
No. We accommodate all castes in the ministerial council. And we create a strong pillars for like that. So there is no questions for the dabav and all these things. We are run a social engineering government, and we are trying to give the good governance in the state of Bihar. So there is no dabang wabang. ये सब सरकार में नहीं है. मुख्यमंत्री जी total believe करते हैं rule of law पर, and it prevails in the coming future also. We are talking about for the Rojgars. We are talking about the Rojgars, and he is already yesterday announced in the Gandhi Madan. We have delivered 10 lakhs government jobs. So we are focused for the development and Rojgars and all these things. We are not मतलब कि ये इस टाइप का मैं इस चीज को एडमिट नहीं करता हूँ कि कोई दबंग वबंग का कोई बात है यहाँ पर. There is no dabang government.
You don't believe in any such thing?
No.
Okay, fine. But the fact is, Alok Vats, coming back to the point that Mayank Sinha was making earlier, that 1 minute when the BJP is with Nitish, the PM, everyone is complimenting him and saying he's doing a wonderful job. And the moment he switches sides,
obviously,
he suddenly becomes,
if you are in good company,
he becomes an enemy.
If you are in good company, you will do good things. If you are in bad company, you will do bad things. It was Nitish who has said it was Jungle Raj of Lalu Yadav. It was Jungle Raj of Rabri Devi. He didn't coin this word. So now he has gone to the
so
people
Nitish
who have created
it is all
Jungle
company.
Raj.
Nitish has no individual.
Jungle Raj
okay.
And his people, he was talking about Dabangai. Already the one particular community has started showing their Dabangai. They have also taken the lion's share in the cabinet. They are almost 8-9 of them. And their people are already creating on the street, in the thanas, in the government offices. So the Jungle Raj is already back. And Nitish will be a helpless head. he will not be able
Helpless
to
head. Okay, well, let's wait and see. Let's wait and see how it goes. At the moment, the government is taking shape there in Bihar. All eyes on it to see how it will play out and what impact it will have on the national stage. But